record on this computer. Okay.
Dre, it just says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Oh, let me see. Sorry about that.
That's
There
okay.
we go. You're all set.
Awesome. Let's see. I haven't done this before, so okay, great. Can everybody see my screen? Awesome. Okay, so before I start, I just want to say that I am presenting this information from the lands of the Turrbal people, and I just want to acknowledge them as the traditional owners of this land, and I'd like to pay respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Okay, hi. My name's Naushin. I'm an interior designer. A little bit about me is that I have been designing interiors since I was a little kid. I used to just like rearrange my room, and like every time my mom would come into my room, there'd be something different. It's just, I always like to make spaces my own. And so then I studied architecture, and I worked at Bluestone Lane, where I designed over 25 stores. And then I moved on to residential interior design with Common Living, where I designed and opened 11 co-living homes. And then I started my own studio because, like Jaya said, it's my passion. And I just love curating spaces for the individual person. What I think about interior design is that it is very much so how a individual interacts with their space, and it is probably the most important thing in our lives, and we don't even realize it. So that is a little bit about why I'm so, I guess, obsessed with it. So I just want to talk a little bit about the concept of home. So home pre-COVID, I know that a lot of the time in bigger cities, home is a very transient concept. You know, we're only there when we come home from work or if we're going to eat a meal. And then oftentimes that means that our homes only have the very bare minimum. You know, you might go into somebody's apartment in New York City or in Sydney or wherever, and you'll go in and you'll see that they might only have like a sofa, maybe a table, you know, just the very, very bare minimum. And that made sense before because we just weren't really in our spaces very much. And so then home post-COVID or during COVID is very, very different. So we spend so much time now in our homes that we're really starting to notice that, hey, I need more things. Or maybe there are some things that are working and some things that are not working. And then also sharing the space with other people is a huge thing as well. And so our concept of home has essentially completely changed. It's no longer a place where we just come to eat, come to sleep. You know, it's not a place where we just like store our things. It's a place where we are spending essentially all of our time if we are in cities that have, you know, more quarantine restrictions. And so things to think about in our homes now that we are spending so much more time there are the following. So for me, I will be sitting in a chair all day and I will think that actually this chair sucks and I can't sit here properly. It's like starting to hurt my back. It's not ergonomic. I personally have a chair that doesn't have wheels and it just doesn't make any sense because every time I have to pull it in, I have to pick it up. It doesn't work. And so these are the things that we're starting to notice in our homes, right? Maybe we're like, this is just silly. Like, why do I have this item of furniture in my home if it doesn't serve a function and it's not comfortable? And so these are the first two things, comfort and functionality. And then maybe we have a sofa where if we are working from the sofa, we're like, actually, this is also extremely uncomfortable and it's just not working for me. And then the next thing is storage. So I recently, next to my desk, I was like, I just need a thing that I take stuff off my desk and I put on something else. And so it doesn't have to be anything fancy, but it's just thinking about like what it is that I need to make my space more functional. And so I recognized that I needed something there. So I went out and got a little storage cabinet. And so now everything that was on my desk is now on the storage cabinet. And so it's things like that. And then maybe with storage, we're now noticing that, well, I because I'm eating so much more at home, maybe I need a furniture item that allows for more food storage. Maybe I need like a little bamboo shelf in my kitchen where I can store more dry goods. So little things like this, just noticing in our home now that we're spending so much more time in it, what are the things that we need to make our life easier? What are the things that are going to make our lives more comfortable? And then if we have children, what's kid friendly? So are we thinking about, we might have furniture where our kids are running around and they might hurt themselves. And on the same vein, making sure that we have a study from home space as well as a work from home space. So obviously, like if we're in smaller apartments, that does get challenging, but just doing our best to make sure that there are these spaces that are delineated. And then that sort of comes into privacy and separation as well. So privacy, if we live with roommates, then sort of thinking about how we can separate our spaces so that this space is my work from home space and that is your work from home space. And then this is our collective chill out living in home space. And that separation is so important. We know, there are countless psychological studies that say that you need to have a separation between where you work from and where you live from. And if you mix too much of this, then you never have that sense of going home from work. Even though we're working from home, we don't have that sense where it's like, okay, that's my workspace and this is my live space. And that is extremely important. If we don't have that separation, we just can't find that peace when we finish working for the day. The next thing is maintenance. So now that we're spending so much more time at home, we're using our things so much more. How sturdy are our items of furniture? How sturdy are our, even just like things like dinnerware, or just the things that we're using every day? How sturdy are they? And are they made of a material that is easy to clean? So maybe if we're spending a lot of time on our sofa and it's a white sofa and it doesn't have any type of performance fabric thread through the fabric, then maybe we're spilling our coffee on it, our wine, whatever, and it's staining. And we have to think about these things now that we're spending more time at home. What kind of materials are we bringing into our home and are they easy to maintain? And then the last thing is very Marie Kondo, but what is it that sparks joy in our homes? So thinking about little things like instead of drinking out of the same water bottle that I take to the gym, I drink out of her because she's beautiful. She has a cork top and it just makes me feel more fancy. I know that that kind of sounds silly, but it does make such a huge difference. It's these little things that we bring into our lives that really, really make us feel more comfortable at home, more like we can function properly, and more that we're happy to be there. None of us decided that there would be a pandemic. None of us knew that this is what our 2020 would look like. I'm actually sure that because it was the end of the decade, that 2020 people had these grand ideas. And so no one knew that this is what it was going to look like, right? And so it's different, and we have to adapt. And just these little things that we can bring into our day-to-day lives really helps us to adapt. And so I want to talk a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of interior design. So interior design, and I know I have some Aussies here, so there are lots of, they're kind of called different things in different countries. So interior design includes all types of things. It can include millwork and joinery drawings. It can include finishes and fixtures and lighting and hinges and door handles and all that stuff. We're not going to go too much into that today. We're just going to talk about furniture and fixtures. So these are and colors. So these are the types of things that we're going to talk about today. So the first thing that I want to talk about is what makes a beautiful room. And I would say that the thing that makes a beautiful room is balance. And so you might walk into a space and think, okay, this is a beautiful space. You might walk in and you say, oh, this just feels nice, right? But maybe we don't know exactly why it feels nice. You know, you might walk into a space and be like, okay, I really like that chair, or I like that rug, or I like that table, but we're not sure why when it all comes together it feels good. And so for me, I always say that interior design isn't only about what it looks like, it's about what it feels like. How does it make us feel? It's a very, very sort of ethereal experience. It's an emotional experience, and that we really have to talk about interior design with emotion, especially because we are spending so much more time in our spaces now. And so here's the rundown. So first up is color. And I don't want to go too deep into the realm of the color wheel because people do PhDs on this stuff. But essentially, there are a few color families. There are warm colors and there are cool colors. And, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory. Warm colors are orange, reds, and yellows. Cool colors are blues and greens and grays and purples. And so we have to think about what kind of what kind of temperature we're trying to bring into our homes. So usually if we have like a living space, we want things to be warmer or at least have warm elements. And we'll go through that a little bit more later on. And then there are complementary colors. So complementary colors on a color wheel are essentially the colors that are opposite each other. So recently for a project, I saw this aquamarine rug, which I just thought was the most beautiful thing ever. And I thought, this is going to be the pivot of my design. Everything else has to work around this rug because I must use this rug. And so I made sure that I had warmer elements around the aquamarine rug so that it felt balanced. So I made sure that we had oranges in the space, more like reddy orange colors, terracotta colors. These are the things that I mixed with the aquamarine rug because it's complementary on the color wheel. And then there are monochromatic color schemes, achromatic color schemes, and then my favorite color scheme is whatever you want. So there's a little bit of confusion about what the word monochromatic means. So people may think that monochromatic just means like black and white. That's wrong. I would say this is a monochromatic scheme. This is also a monochromatic scheme. So monochromatic literally just means mono means one, chromatic means color. So it just means one color. This is an achromatic scheme. Achromatic scheme, it means black, whites, and grays. I think that this is a beautiful space. However, I would argue that it's not necessarily a warm, homey space. And it really does depend on what it is that you like. But this space, for me, it seems a little bit cool. And it seems that maybe it wouldn't be the nicest space to spend your whole entire day in. It does have value though. And then this is the whatever you want color scheme. So both of these designers are Australian. I love both of these spaces.
Now, can I pause you for a second? We're only seeing page 1 of the presentation. We want to see your pretty color schemes.
Oh no. Okay, let me try it again. That's weird.
There you go. Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
So did you see all of this, or you didn't see any of it?
Just page 1.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll go through. Okay, so I'll just like quickly go through these slides. So I would say this is a monochromatic scheme. And then this is also a monochromatic scheme. So like I said before, it's just one color. And then this was the achromatic scheme that I was talking about, the scheme that's maybe a little bit more cold, but this is kind of what's confused usually with a monochromatic scheme. And so this is the slide that I was on before. These are 2 Australian designers, and yeah, this is the color scheme to just do whatever you want, essentially. One of my favorite designers, Kelly Wersler, she says that with colors, you just do whatever feels right. I would agree with that. I think that if you're going to go bold with color, you should just go all out. Oftentimes, if somebody has, like, for example, this bright pink sofa, if you had it in isolation, I don't think that it would work. If you're going to do something bold, you should do everything bold. And it really depends on your personality and what you have in your closet, you know, what colors that you usually like wearing, or having in your life, and just think about it from that perspective. If you're generally a colorful person, then you don't really want a home that's all whites and beiges, right? You want something that makes you feel like it's your space. Just want to check that you can still see the slides. Okay. So then the next thing is shapes. So essentially we have two shapes, round and square. It's pretty straightforward. And the thing is that we just want to make sure that there is always a balance between the two. So on the left-hand side, you can see that in the forefront of the image, we have two very angular chairs. And then we have a square coffee table. And then in the background, we have this beautiful, lush, rounded sofa. And that goes with the arches, the architecture of the space as well. So it goes with the ceiling and it goes with the arches of the window. So in this space, you can clearly see that the shapes are very balanced. And then in the space on the right-hand side as well, it's the same thing. So this space architecturally was extremely angular, as you can see in the ceiling. And so we used a rounded sofa. You can't really see it too much here, but it is rounded. And then we have this beautiful angular leather poof used as a coffee table in the center. And then we had these rounded side chairs as well. So again, it's balanced, just making sure that we have a mix of both. The next thing is textures. So this is a space by one of my favorite designers, Tali Roth. You can see in this space that there are a mix of different items, right? But everything is working very cohesively, very well together. And here is why. So in this space here, we have blackened steel around the fireplace. We have a blackened steel work table here as well. And then we have a natural chair to sit in. We have a shaggy woolen rug, and then then we have a glass table here, a plush sofa, a suede side chair, and a leather side chair. Oops. So essentially what we have here is we have a mix of man-made materials and a mix of natural materials. So we have harsher materials like the blackened steel and the glass, and the angularness of the paintings, the angles of the fireplace. These are all harsh elements. And so we want to balance them out with softer natural elements. So we have these soft materials like the shaggy rug, the plush sofa, the plush suede material. But suede is also a natural material. So if we bring in nature into our homes, then this automatically will soften the space. It automatically makes it more comfortable. It's also a warm material. So we've got the natural material on the office chair. We have the suede on the side chair, and then we have the leather on the side as well. So these are all things that we can bring in to soften the space. You can imagine in this space, if we had more man-made materials, like if we had, say, for example, like a plastic side chair or like more glass elements, then it would just all feel a little too cold. So we want to bring in those natural materials to soften the space. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about texture. The next thing is patterns. I have to admit that I am always a little bit afraid of patterns. I'm afraid that I'm going to mess it up, but there is a pretty easy to follow sort of instinct, I guess, with patterns. So the space on the left is a Kelly Wersler space, and you can see that she loves using patterns. She's got a mix of different patterns here, and they all work really, really well together. The way that she describes it is, again, just don't be afraid. And just think about what it is that you want to be the hero of the space. And we'll talk about that on the next slide as well. And I'm using this space on the right-hand side again, because if you're going to use a bold pattern, try not to use it in isolation. Try to use it with other bold colors, with other bold elements. And so, yeah, there's kind of a myth that like you shouldn't mix patterns when in clothes that you wear. I also don't think that that's true. I think that these are all rules that people have made to hinder our personalities. So just go all out, essentially. I love these two spaces. And so the next thing is a statement. So people often talk about, you know, like a statement chair or like a statement piece or a statement art piece, but like, what does that actually mean, right? So this is a beautiful space. Essentially, what the rule of thumb is with statements is that you want to make sure that there is a hierarchy of statements. So you want to make sure that everything is working together and that nothing is fighting for your attention. If everything is kind of fighting to be the hero of the space, then it's going to be a disaster. It looks like one of those homes that you kind of don't know where to look, and there's kind of just too much going on. And so in this image, you can see that there are a few statements. We've got the wallpaper behind. I'm pretty sure that's wallpaper behind. That's a statement, right? That's a statement wall. But then you also have this statement floor lamp, which is just beautiful. And then you also have this statement art piece as well. This is also a statement, even though that it looks like, you know, it's kind of muted, it's still a statement. And then obviously with these gorgeous purple flowers, that's also a statement in your styling. But what do you feel like is the hero of this space? The hero of the space is this beautiful credenza. We can immediately tell that that is the hero of the space. This is the item that is calling for my attention. It is the star of the space. And so we want to make sure that if we have a statement, we're sort of leveling it up with everything else that's in the space. Awesome. Objects. So objects are my favorite thing in interior design. Reason being is that this is where we can have fun. So you can go out and buy furniture from your vintage stores, from antique stores, from whatever store you want, but you want to make it you. You want to make your home you. I believe that objects is what makes a space different from being just like a hotel room to being your home, right? Because you have your things. I'm at my parents' house at the moment, and I recently was going through a box and I found this mug that has a drawing of a princess and it says princess on the mug. And I have had this mug for 27 years. And I found it and I was like, this mug, you know, it's just these little things that we have memories with, we're sentimental about. And these are the things that make our home our home. And so even during COVID, you know, we're thinking about like, well, what is it about this space that doesn't feel right to me? You know, and maybe it is just because we don't have those things that bring us comfort, those things that spark joy. And so when it comes to objects, there are absolutely no rules. So you can fill your space with as many items that you fill your heart. So you can go, you know, very muted. You can have like these little things. Maybe you find that you, with your objects, you lean for the same things every time. Maybe it's candles. Maybe you collect vases or jars or whatever. And so maybe it's more muted, or maybe you find this beautiful green goddess, this amazing vase in this second image, and then you curate your objects around that item. You can curate your objects, or you can just fill your home with whatever you already have. And then, you know, there's books, there are, what else? There's mugs, dinnerware. And then, you know, like in this image, this orange pedestal, I feel like if I saw that in a store, I would be like, nah, I don't think that that's for me. However, in this space, it looks beautiful. So there really aren't any rules when it comes to objects. Here are some more examples. So you can use objects to fill your shelves. You can use objects on the walls. You can do both, as shown in this image. This person obviously has a lot of books and likes to collect patterns and textiles. So they have a lot of stuff, but it just looks beautiful. And that is her home. That is her space. And that is what we want in our homes, is we want it to be about us. And then this kitchen, I just love this kitchen. I think it's so quaint. And there are these little things, you know, she's obviously got these, this dinnerware here that she wants to put on display. So anything that you feel like is special. With objects as well, I think that it's beautiful to bring in something special into your day-to-day pieces. So like I was saying before, this is my drink bottle. I like to make it special. You can buy, you know, I've seen people have like vintage wine glasses. So when they have friends come over, even during COVID, if you have like 1 or 2 people come over, you know, you can pour them wine in your favorite wine glass. And it's just this special experience. Like, how do you make that moment more special as opposed to just like a stemless wine glass that you got from Target? You know, like making it special. And then you have like beautiful teapots. Maybe you've collected a tea set over time and you give tea to your visitor, your guest, and it's just special. Or maybe you have your favorite coffee mug that you're like, I have to drink out of coffee out of this mug every single morning, or like it doesn't work on my brain. You know, these are the things that we have, and it doesn't have to necessarily be like a really chic mug or a really chic vase that you put your flowers in. It just has to speak to you. And so it really is, when it comes to objects and decorating and styling, it really is just something that is instinctive. It is about you. And so there are all these theories of furniture design and interior design that we can go into, but when it comes to decorating, just throw the book out the window is my belief. Just make it about you. It's your home. I wouldn't say the same thing if I were to design a cafe or a hotel, but when it comes to homes, which is what we're talking about today, this is the most important thing. You're spending so much time there. You want to make it about you. Any questions?
That was amazing. Thank you. I feel so inspired. I need to go through each room in my apartment and redo it. So we do have a lot of questions, and I'm excited to get started. Okay, so we had our first question is from Claire, and let's see. Claire says, when talking about the materials we bring home, do you find, in your professional opinion, the all natural and organic fibers hold out just as well compared to performance fabrics?
I would say that thank you for your question, Claire. I would say that it really depends on where the fabric is. So if it's on, say, for example, like in this image, actually on this slide, that jute rug, I would say that the natural fabric wears fine. This sofa, however, it isn't a performance fabric. I would say that on chairs that you sit on, you have to always think about how much, what is your lifestyle. If it's just you in your space, then maybe you can have a bright white sofa. If you are somebody who entertains very often, then I would always suggest to use a performance fabric. So there are different types of performance fabrics. You can use a sunbrella fabric, which essentially is like an outdoor fabric, but they use the sunbrella thread woven in with like a linen or a velvet. So it's not that it's like, it doesn't have that plasticky feel, like outdoor furniture has. It still feels like indoor furniture, but it's just easier to clean. So for me personally, I would say that if I were to get a white sofa, I would make sure that it had a sunbrella thread through it, because I know that that matches my lifestyle. I often have people over. I love eating red sauce with pasta and pizza. So that's just how I am. And so it really, really depends on what the item of furniture is and what your lifestyle is like. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, that really does. And it's something that I've encountered as well, having a pet, because my cat will scratch at different fabrics. So that's something I have to take into consideration, because he'll just tear it up, and it ruins it. So
yeah,
it's one of those situations where the fabric is like a make or break deal. Great question, Claire. So next question from Yeli, our InCreative co-founder. Have you ever worked with a custom fabric printer? It's my dream to graphic design a custom fabric used in a home for a curtain or a sofa.
Yes, I have worked with a custom fabric printer, and I have some connects that I can connect you with, Yeli. It is so much fun, and I know that designers actually do it often, where you might have like you essentially just have to make, like, to go into the, kind of the basics of like graphic design, is you just have to have like a repeating swatch, and then you send it over to them and they print it. It is beautiful. What I would say is that it's a little bit nerve-wracking, because oftentimes when you're making these patterns, it's because they're like very bold. And like I mentioned before, I'm a little bit afraid of patterns. And so if you're printing them on like a large scale, say like, a sectional sofa, that's taking up a lot of positive space that your eye immediately goes to. So it is a little bit of a gamble. But in the times that I've used it, it's worked out. So, and I do love using them. I've done a lot of like custom wallpaper as well.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds gorgeous. I love custom wallpaper, especially when it's a landscape or like a scene is super, it's like the entire wall is a painting and it's just gorgeous.
Yeah,
Like I
gorgeous.
really don't even need much. It's just, there's just, that's all you need.
Mm.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So she has another really good question. So this is from Yelly, our In Creative co-founder. Uh, for people who may hold on to too many objects, do you think there's a way for a designer to deal with it in organizing them in the right way?
Yes. I one of my clients actually at the moment, she has a lot of different little things that she's collected from her travels. I would say that the best way to store these is to have some kind of cabinet or armoire that has glass doors, and just displaying them there. I know that that's kind of like something that you might see maybe at like your grandmother's house, but it is like a really beautiful way to hold on to your things. And maybe there are things that you're like, I don't really want to use, I don't have a use for this like snow globe, but I love it. I got it and I have a memory attached to it. And so just like having a place where you can store those things. If you don't really like that vibe, there are also ways where if you have like a shelf or something in your living room, then you can arrange your objects on the shelf. I have seen shelves that are fully packed with memorabilia or things that are like very sparsely collected and very artfully arranged. So again, it really just depends on you. I think the worst thing that you could do is put it away in a box. I don't think that that's very nice. If it's something that you truly feel like has some importance to you, then put it on display and make it a talking point. When you have a guest come over, they might be like, where did you get this amazing snow globe? And then you can start to talk about it, and then it's really and it shows who you are. So I think it's important to display the things that are important to you.
That's a great point, especially when when you see it, it brings a smile to your face. And
Yeah.
actually, at my grandma's house, she has this. So it's almost like a picture frame, but it looks like it's like a railing. So it's like a little mini shelf, and it's at the top by the ceiling, maybe like
Mm,
a foot down. And it was the entire uh like outline of the dining room, and she would have like
mm-hmm.
these little like curio figurines and I don't know things that she liked all on it, and it was like this very interesting shelf that I've never seen anywhere else, where it's like just right above, so like it wasn't completely like eyeline or anything,
Right.
right
Yeah.
above, so when you looked up it in, it's like, oh, that's interesting, like all these like little things everywhere, and definitely added like talking points. She like put
Mm.
Christmas cards up on it and like set Christmas cards around it. So like it just looked very festive sometimes, or sometimes just things that she likes. So I think adding in elements like that, like unexpected shelving, etc., could be like new ways to display stuff.
Right. That's gorgeous. And it kind of depends on like, yeah, like what is your style as well. If you feel like in your life you have a very minimalist style, there are lots of, architects and designers actually that just have like zero things. They don't have things. And they just have like very bare minimum, then that's cool too. Like you don't need, maybe your object is just that like funky lamp that we saw on the other slide. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's home because it's your space.
That's a really good point too. It is your space, so it should be what you like, and I think that's why we love being home, because it's ours and we can make it whatever we want, which I think is super special, because we're always going other places and experiencing like the way,
Mm,
somebody else, decorated a hotel, or how somebody else decorated the office space, and then, our home is always our home. So actually, I have a question of my own. If
mm-hmm.
I was on a long vacation and I get homesick, should I bring things to put around my hotel room, or let's say Airbnb, to like make me feel a little bit more comfortable?
Yeah, sure. I mean, why not? I would say that like sometimes I will bring a scarf that I might throw on my Airbnb bed as like a throw, like a decorative throw. Another thing is that it doesn't even necessarily need to be um, like an object that you feel brings those memories. It can just be a way that if we're going from like a functional perspective, like something I do every time I go into a hotel is I get one of the glasses and I'll put it in the bathroom and I immediately put my toothbrush and my toothpaste in the glass. So it's just like things like that where I'm like, I'm set up. I don't need to worry about like any of my stuff. Like I'm set up. If you feel like you really do feel like you do get homesick, that's like something that you experience, then yeah, for sure, bring the things that will put a smile on your face. I guess just like maybe be careful about bringing things that might break in your luggage.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Which does happen. So
Yeah.
our typographer loves what you said about color, and I do too. I think that was so many great points. And then Yeli has another question for you. Can you take us through a home design project in terms of the steps you go through in working with other collaboratives or industries?
Yeah, for sure. So when I kind of start a project, I would say that if I'm kind of starting a project with an individual, sorry, there is a noisy dog. If I'm starting a project with an individual and it's their home, then the very first thing that I want to know is how they live in their space. You guys can let me know if the dog is way too much and I'll move inside.
I can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay, great. So I just want to know how they live in their space, right? I don't want to think about like how I live in my space is their space, to finding out about how they live in their space. And then the next thing I will do is I will send them images for inspiration, a mood board, and maybe like other colors or artwork that I think would be suitable in their space. And then we will discuss, and then they might come to me with inspiration images, and then we'll go through like a design board, and then also a space plan. So a design board is like the actual items that I have selected for their space, and then a space plan is to make sure that everything makes sense in their space and is working in their space. Another thing that we didn't really talk so much about is scale. It's just so important that everything works with size for everything. So, like making sure that the coffee table is the right size, things like that. And then from that point onward, like if they want to engage me for procurement and installation, then we can go through that process. Installation is one of my favorite parts of the project, but a lot of people prefer to install themselves because they don't realize how challenging it actually is. But installation is fun because you can actually start to see the design come to life. In terms of working with other industries, Yelly, I think that the people who I work with the most are art directors, or people who I think I have like a pretty good eye for art, but then there are some people who, maybe they also have a good eye for art, but they're looking for like a real professional opinion. And so in which case I would engage an art director. And then other consultants who I have worked with in the past include architects, even though I studied architecture. I don't think it's professional for me to be giving architecture advice. So, I will engage an architect. For hospitality projects in the past, we have used creative teams to essentially build the brand of a project. I think for me, the coolest project is one that you can design from start to finish and really curate the feel and the brand of this company, of the organization. So that's thinking about the interiors of their space, how that marries with their logo, how that marries with their marketing collateral, how that marries with their napkins, everything. I think that is the coolest project because I really do feel like those projects are the ones that work the best. They're the ones that look the best. And most importantly, they're the spaces that feel the best, the most special.
That's a wonderful explanation because there's so many different paths of collaboration, and you really take advantage of all of it, which I think why your project shines so bright. So that's awesome. I have a wonderful question from our fabulous core member Ozzy. So Ozzy is asking, what are your thoughts about objects which function is purely ornamental versus utilitarian? Is there a point when it's just too much ornaments, clutter, or is it always more is better when it comes to personal objects?
Hmm. I would say that I don't think that there really is a difference between like if it has a function and if it's purely ornamental. I would say if it has a function, then that's great. Say for example, if it's like a tea set that you've collected and you use it when like a friend comes over, then that is really special. I would say in terms of clutter, I think that if you just make sure that you're displaying it in the same place, like I mentioned before, if it's in a cabinet or on a shelf, then that's beautiful. Or if you have like a side table and you just have like this one little bud vase that you really love that you put on the side table, then that's beautiful. However, I think that when there are more items and you start to collect them, like on the dining table or like the coffee table, like these types of surfaces that also serve a function and serve a purpose, then that's when it starts to turn into clutter. And so I don't think that there is, I honestly don't think that it's possible to have like too many things. I think it definitely depends on how much space you have. Obviously, in our New York City apartments, our spaces are like the size of our thumbnail. So, thinking about like, okay, well, maybe I want to only display like half of my objects this year, and then maybe I'll do like a spring clean next year and switch them out. Why not? And so doing something like that. And then like for me, I have a lot of personal objects myself. And I just like have this vision that like one day I will have this bigger home where I will be able to display everything. But yeah, sometimes it does get a bit too much when it is in relation to our spaces, to the size of our spaces, and exactly where it is that we're displaying them. Does that answer your question, Ozzy?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it definitely was very clear. And I think that that's a really great question when it comes to, yeah, how much is too much? There's definitely little pockets of spaces I have in my apartment where I'd say it's impeding function, where it's like not necessary. So it could, not that I should put away, but maybe it's better some other place, or maybe have more shelving, and it, or like just display it like not where it is, because that's where we're living, we're using as like
Right.
a coffee table or something. Like it's just too many things. So
Yeah.
Kelly has another question. What if someone comes to you without their own personal style? How do you help them discover what they want?
That's a good question. I would say, what do they like to wear? So,
Oh,
yeah, or like what kind of yeah, a lot of the time like people might be like, I just don't really know like what I like, but I know that I really like blue, and these are kind of the colors that are in my closet. And then we'll kind of like work off that. And so maybe another thing that I might try and ask them is like, do they feel like they do love color, or do they feel like their palette is more neutral? I think I always start with color. If they say neutral, then I will start to show them a few, like images of spaces that have worked in the past. And then we go from there. So I hope that answers your question. But it is challenging when people aren't sure. Sometimes when people aren't sure, it's exciting for me because then I can do whatever it is that I want. But then sometimes it gets to the point where they aren't sure just because they can't articulate what it is that they like. In which case, maybe I might show them like different images of two completely different styles and just like try to deduce what it is that they like. Yeah, it is challenging though.
it is hard. Sometimes it's a lifelong journey on discovering what you like and what and what jives. I'm still figuring it out, whether fashion or interior design, music, it's always changing. So let's say someone's personal style does change. Are there easy ways to swap out? So let's say somebody that was more like neutral, had some insights and was like, you know what, I want to be more colorful in my life. How would you transition?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would do it with art or reupholstering something in their home. So actually for one of my clients, I recently reupholstered these like two antique chairs that they had. They really liked them, but they were like, they're kind of boring because they're just like a white linen fabric. So we just reupholstered them to have this really cool, it's like a terracotta fabric that I got from an upholsterer of mine. So it's, yeah, stuff like that. And I don't think it's in, I feel like changing somebody's upholstery is a fairly like unobtrusive intervention into their style. So I think that that is just like a soft way of introducing more bold patterns if people have said that their style is more neutral in the past. Also because I feel like people stay neutral because they're afraid. Everyone's like, oh, I really like this Scandi minimalistic sort of look, because they are afraid of using color and pattern and texture. And so I think as a designer, if we can think of soft ways to introduce like something more fun, then that's really exciting. I think there's a supplier that I use called The Inside, and they essentially have like 5 silhouettes, 5 shapes of furnitures. They have benches, X benches, and like side chairs, but they have like hundreds of fabrics. So that's really fun because you can be like, here, why don't you just take this tiny little stool that is like an orange fabric that has zebras on it and put it in your house and just like see how that feels, see how it might lift your space. That's how I would do it.
Thank you for that, because that's definitely something I find I'm doing a lot. I used to like one thing, now I like something else. I definitely, just like changing up my spaces easily. One of the ways I do that is I get pillow covers. So I have really bold pillow covers, and then as the season changes, I change them out. And then, it's these fresh throw pillows that look new, even though it's just the cover of it. It's like those things. And then I can store the pillow covers a lot easier than having like entirely different pillows, especially in a
nice.
Oh, so Isa has a really great question. That's our typographer of the group. Do you have any software to sketch up the spaces before you actually buy and have all the stuff in the room?
So yeah, I think if it's for a hospitality space, I will use SketchUp to see it in 3D. However, with my residential clients, I don't really feel that that is 100% necessary. I essentially do a design board, and the design board is just everything, all the furniture items just like collaged together in the way that it's going to work. And then that way the client can see how it's going to come together. So it's obviously not like accurate in terms of like an axonometric like drawing or anything like that. It just shows like the textures, the colors, and then on the design boards as well, I might take out, and I do it in Photoshop, I might take out like a little swatch to the side, zoomed in, so you can see, maybe you can see the pattern better, you can see the thread of the fabric better, you can see the shag of the rug better if I like take a little swatch from the item and put it off to the side. So that's really how I show my clients how everything will come together in a space.
That's a
and
really
then
great
also obviously with like material swatches or samples, obviously during COVID that's a lot harder. One of my clients here in Brisbane, because Brisbane's like pretty much back to normal, we can show her samples and stuff, so that's nice because it's nice to be able to feel and see it with your own eyes.
Is there a mood board platform that you prefer?
I feel most comfortable with Photoshop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I will put my mood boards, which are like more inspiration images, together in InDesign. I'm very like I feel confident in InDesign, so I like did my presentation in InDesign. But then with design boards, with like removing backgrounds or maybe changing, if I feel like the color isn't the color that I took from like the product's website isn't 100% correct, then I might alter it in Photoshop so that it looks more realistic. So yeah, I feel like I just use the Adobe suite. I'm most confident there. So
That's
yeah.
definitely, yeah, I completely can understand that. I used to use Polyvore for fun, but that no
Hmm.
longer exists. Polyvore was really great for like collaging and creating mood boards, especially when pulling
Hmm.
from different things. So we have some fun questions coming your way. Did you ever watch the TV show Changing Rooms or Interior Design Challenge?
Yeah, I watched Interior Design Challenge. There's also one in Australia that I watched called The Block. The Block is essentially like they take over, um, it's sort of, yeah, I think originally it was like they take over a block of homes and they just like redo all the homes like that they have in the block, and there's teams and then there's like experts that go around and judge, and it's really fun. I did really like that show. And then they had ones where they did like a massive building, or it was like each floor a team had like a different floor. Yeah, I do love those shows. um yeah, and then like Design Masters and stuff on Netflix now is great too.
So, how can people reach you, hire you? Just all about, where to see your portfolio or, what type of projects you're taking on right now.
Yeah, so how can people find me? They can find me through Instagram, or through my website is great as well, naushindesigns.com. Yeah, just go into the contact section. You can email me. I think I'm probably fastest on email over any other platform. What type of projects I'm taking on at the moment? Yeah, I love residential projects. I find them to be super exciting. However, I am extremely experienced in hospitality projects as well. So, yeah, and if you hear of anyone that is kind of like not sure if they need a designer, the answer is that they usually do.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah, I'm sure
That's
we all
for
know
sure.
that as well in our separate industries.
I wish I knew you a year ago when I moved into my apartment, because it's tough collaborating my things with my partner's things.
Mm,
That's a huge design challenge because I have my
yeah.
set things that I want around, and then there's the other person's things that they of course want to have around. How do you make this all
Yeah.
come together because it's two basically separate lives in
Yeah.
one space. So I mean, we made it work, but that's it in itself. Like, yeah, just have someone understand like the collaboration, just with making it all look like one cohesive home, because it was tough. We really had to sit down and we had a lot of talks about
Mhm.
what's going where, how, do you really like this coffee table kind of a thing? Because,
Right.
man, yeah. So,
Yeah, I would say that that is definitely a time for a professional intervention. Um, not into your relationship, obviously, but into your interior design, where it's just, I think a lot of the time, like you just need a third party person to be like, honestly, this coffee table is not, it's ugly. We need to get rid of it. It doesn't work in this space. Just get rid of it. That's, yeah, because otherwise, like, yeah, it's totally hard. Like two different people with two like totally different styles. Like, how do you make it work? It is extremely challenging. So I feel you.
that would be an interesting show. Just taking a couple movies together for the first time and just, telling them, what to do, how to do this. Because a
Hmm.
lot of times that does start, conflict because, you know, they want to keep, their, whatever, and it's ugly, and the other person's, definitely insulting them.
Yeah.
There's definitely some things I have around here. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. This is this is where I live.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. We really appreciated you coming on and just doing this presentation that's super insightful. I'll definitely keep my eye out for projects that you can work on and get your name out there. It's amazing to see all the different knowledge that you have and how it all comes together to create like a solid thing that people really enjoy every day. It's amazing the depth that it takes to create a room. It's not an easy thing. People definitely appreciate it, and it's those subtle appreciations that build a comfortable home.
Exactly. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Definitely take a look at the comments. People wrote some really lovely comments. So we're feeling the love, and we appreciate you
Oh.
so much.
Thanks. I appreciate you guys.
All right. So I'll stop